I am very glamorous this morning in my monsoon beautiful velvet and this lovely polka dot and lace top. Looks rather elegant for baking, but still, I wanted to show you my recipe for my Lebkuchen, my gingerbread forms that I use to hang on the tree. I use them to decorate my table at Christmas. They're great for name settings and they're just delicious. We often make them in a really big form as well, which I'm going to show you, where we decorate them and give them as gifts to our teachers at the end of term. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously measure out all my ingredients. And often when I'm baking with my kids, I make them measure everything out first before we even do anything. So everything goes into a bowl, and then that way you're clear that your measurements are absolutely right and you can follow the instructions, and they just have to pile it all in. And it often means that there's less mistakes with baking. But this is a really easy recipe, so not tricky at all. So here we have all the ingredients. We've got our plain flour, our spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and also some cloves, a little bit of salt, some lovely soft brown sugar, butter, unsalted, some treacle, golden syrup, and this is my favorite, stem ginger in syrup. And these are going to make our gorgeous Christmas biscuits. First thing we do is we put all the sugars and syrups together with the butter and we melt it in a pan. So I've got my pan here, and in fact I'm going to weigh my liquid syrups and things like that all in here, because then I don't need to be scraping them out of other bowls and into here and losing some of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do 30 grams of treacle. So 30 grams of treacle. Now treacle is a little bit like, if you're American, it's like molasses. And it's really dark and rich, and it's a wonderful flavor for example, for using in ginger loaf. I love it, and it gives a really kind of gooey and stickiness. But if you prefer a lighter gingerbread, you can just use more golden syrup. I like to have a little bit of a mix. So this is 50 grams of golden syrup that's going in now. And I think golden syrup is my favorite. Oh my gosh. I could spoon it. So here we go. This is obviously, it's a very sticky business, this. There we go. And then next up, I've got some honey. Now I'm doing 40 grams of honey, and honey I use in these specifically is because it adds a really good snap. It means that they actually sort of get really hard, and actually when I'm making my gingerbread houses, this is exactly what you need. You need to add honey into your gingerbread recipes. What that does is it just makes the dough, when it comes out of the oven and it cools down, it makes it go really hard. And obviously that's brilliant for structural pieces like gingerbread when you're baking a house. So more honey to make it stronger. So we've got a little bit of honey here just to try and give it some weight. And then finally, I love to add some ginger, which is the stem ginger, and I'll chop some up very finely and add it to the biscuits. But actually the syrup that it comes in is delicious. It's this really light but spicy syrup. It's really good. So I add only about 10 grams of this, but it's worth adding in. So get my scale back on tare, if I can. There we go. All right, and next we're going to add our sugar. So I've got soft brown sugar, 200 grams. That's going in as well. Easy. And then I've also got, so sticky anyway, 200 grams of unsalted butter. And that goes in here as well. Once we've added that, we're going to add our spices. Now, really you can adjust these to how much you like of one particular spice. For example, I like cinnamon. I don't love cinnamon. So cinnamon for me, we're getting 2 teaspoons of cinnamon that's going in here. And then got some nutmeg, and that's 1 teaspoon. Got ground cloves as well. I'm doing 1 teaspoon of that. And then finally we've got my ginger. I love ginger. So in fact I'm putting in 4 teaspoons. But again, if you're not so keen on making it too gingery, you can scale that back down to 2. There we go. I can hear my oven in the background. I've just put it on to heat, and it's quite an old oven, and it's really making itself known. Okay, so once we've done that, I'm literally just going to put this on the hob and let it all melt down and get into this lovely caramelly syrup. That's what we're doing next. So here we can see all my spices, my sugar, my butter, and this just has to sit on a medium to low heat. There we go. Now you can see that this is all beautifully melted down. I wish you could smell it. It smells beautiful. Now we're just going to let it cool for 15 minutes and then move on. So the pan has come off the boil and I've let it cool for about 15 minutes. And I'm now going to add a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Now, when you put this in, this will start to bubble up and create lots of lovely air in the biscuit. I'm now going to go and add this to my mixer. Now I have something called a Thermomix, but a KitchenAid will do, and if you've got really good strong arm muscles, you can also do this yourself, beating and mixing it together. You don't need a fancy machine. This is a really simple recipe. So what I'm going to do first of all though with my machine, because it's got blades, is I'm going to add 1 to 2 of my ginger stem because I love them so much. So I'm actually going to add 2 for me. So look at this, I don't know if you can see it. It's become really kind of thick and frothy from that bicarbonate of soda. We're going to go and take our egg, crack it into a mixer or beat it by hand. Then we're going to add our sugar syrups with the butter that's all blended in. So that's going to go in as well. Oh, so at this point I'm so tempted to just stick a finger in, but of course it's boiling hot and I'll burn myself. So I have to hold back, but oh, the smell is so fantastic. And then finally, we're going to add our flour. There's 500 grams in here, and that literally just goes in. There we go. And pop the lid on for me. And start mixing. Okie dokie, what I've done is I've got my baking tray, I've got my cling film on top, and I've actually not cut it. And I'm doing that so because I'm a bit lazy, but basically you can scrape out your cookie dough mixture. So I've got my spatula and I'm literally just pressing down here with the, doesn't have to be neat or anything, it's just that we're going to roll this out later. So if it's the sort of flatter it is, the quicker it will cool, but also it just makes it easier for rolling out later, because it can really toughen up, but it does make the cutting of your shapes a little bit easier. So here we go. Now I'm going to take my cling film and I literally just going to pull it over like so. That's it. And then get my scissors and cut that. There we go. And then this will now rest in the fridge for 2 hours. I'll see you when it comes out. So while my dough is resting, although you could do this also when your cookies are already in the oven, I'm going to make the icing sugar. So with that recipe, what I've done is I've measured out 250 grams of regular icing sugar. Now, normally I would say to you, you should sieve it just to get rid of all those lumps and bumps. In my Thermomix, it's pretty high powered, so I just give it a bit of a blitz. And then to that, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. So that goes in. And then I'm gonna separate my egg. And I'm only using the egg white. Now I'm gonna keep the egg yolk for later because I'm going to use that as an egg wash to go over the top of my cookies, and it gives them a beautiful kind of burnished look, especially really good for when you're decorating on top of it. So I'm going to keep that egg on the side, and then I'm going to add the egg to my icing sugar, turn that on, and I'm going to mix that up for a couple of minutes until it gets really silky. If you find it's too stiff, I'd add really just a few drops of water at a time, making sure that I don't over add. If you add too much though, just add a bit more icing sugar. That'll be fine. Have a little look at how this is looking. It should form, I would say, a sort of a stiff peak, but still have a softness to it. I think it needs a tiny bit more water actually. It's just, I don't know if you can see, so if I stick, you can see it's holding quite well, but for me I can feel that's just a little bit, just a tiny bit, still too stiff. So I'm going to add another couple of drops of water to that. So, and then I'll keep on mixing. There we go. But it's literally drops. It's so fine. I think icing sugar is one of the hardest things to get right, the consistency, because of course it's just icing sugar with a bit of water. I put a little bit of lemon juice in it and that egg white, but depending on how runny, how glossy it is, that's when you get great results, and it makes the icing so much easier. So really, if you can get this bit right, it just makes the next bit so much simpler. So my icing sugar is ready. I'm not sure if you can see, but it's incredibly glossy. It's got a really glossy finish to it, and that's because it's had a good 2 minutes being beaten. And it's sort of got that thick marshmallow feel, and you can see it's holding that peak, but at the same time, it's soft enough that I know it's going to come out of a little nozzle. So now I'm going to go and put that in some icing bags. Now, if you have icing bags and nozzles, you can use different nozzles to create different shapes. If you want to use, for example, when I'm doing piping, I often use an icing bag and I just snip the very end, and that creates a perfect width in order to do my writing and stuff. But if you want to do some decorating, I would also make a little bit more of the icing sugar mixture, and I would add a little bit more icing sugar to make it slightly stiffer. Because if you've got an icing nozzle, you want it to hold that shape. You want it to keep those indentations, and this is too runny for that. So this will be beautiful lines, but it's not going to be enough sort of hold to it. For creating sort of, if you wanted to do rosettes or you wanted to do sort of lovely sort of flowers, it would be too runny. So I would suggest adding more icing sugar just to beef that up a bit. So I have these little piping bags. I often wash them out, reuse them. And you can just turn over the edge and hold it here. But actually, I used to have this amazing stand that used to do this for me. It broke after many years. So actually I use tall glasses, vases, jugs. And actually what you can do is, I'm using it in this vase here, and it just will hold your icing bag so that then I can add my icing sugar into here. It means the icing's not going all over the shop. There we go. That's all my icing. And I fold up the top back over, so you can see one of my nozzles. There we go. All right, so then I'm going to grab onto the top. I'm going to pull that around, and then you can only do this if you haven't snipped the bottom, is I do my helicopter, and it's great because it's just a brilliant way of moving all your icing to the bottom of the bag. There we go. So now you can either do a knot, or you can get those sandwich clips. Just clip it at the end, and then that way it's sealed. It also means when you're decorating and you're squeezing out of the bag, it means you don't have all the explosion. What you might want to do is split the amount between multiple bags, because if you're doing this as a project with your kids, obviously everyone will start fighting over the icing sugar, so you could split it up. And that's ready. I'm going to wait until it's time for icing before I snip that open and start decorating. So I've been making up some more icing sugar. I've gone with green and red, and as you can see, I just put some in a bowl and then I just add it, and I keep on adding the food coloring to get the desired color. But you can see quite how stiff this one is. It's really doesn't move at all, and that's the difference. That's the one that you want to get. I am going with this one, which I think will make beautiful swirls and rosettes, and then this one, which I don't know if you can see, it's sort of quite thin. That will make really pretty, I think, little leaves. That's what I was thinking. Hello. So my dough is cooled enough. It's just come out of the fridge. And I've got a silicone mat. I love silicone mats. They're reusable. Nothing sticks to them. So they're brilliant for meringues, for cake, for bread, for biscuits, for everything. I have a whole stash of them. I love them. So, but what I am going to do is I'm going to roll it out underneath some cling film, because again, this will keep it really smooth. Will stop it sticking to your rolling pin. And now really it's just about rolling your dough out. So now I'm going to go and put these on a baking tray, and they'll go in the oven, and probably be between 6 and 8 minutes. They should be ready. So my heart biscuits have just come out of the oven, and you'll notice, well, I don't know if you can see from here, but some of the holes, they close up quite a lot. So you can take your straw again and just give those a little poke through, because at the moment the biscuit is really soft, and so it allows for you to make your hole again. So I'm just doing that, and then those will be big enough for us to pull our ribbon through. Now in here I've got an egg yolk mixed with a teaspoon of cream, but you can use milk as well. And it's only egg yolk, no egg white. So that's the egg yolk that we've got left over from our egg. And I'm just brushing the surface of my biscuits